So Milla Jovovich, yes, the same woman from your teenage dreams who spent the better half of a decade kicking hairless dogs across a series of zombie movies, amongst a bunch of other great achievements, went and built an AI memory system, which I think is awesome, and that's why I want to explore it in this video. Okay, so let me explain how everything works, because the naming can be kind of confusing here with the route that they chose, but the concept underneath is very, very simple. So everything inside MemPalace lives in a database on your machine called ChromaDB, and ChromaDB is essentially just a vector database, and that means that instead of searching by exact keywords like a normal database, it understands meaning. So if you search for something like why did we change our login system, it moves to a little certain area of space and it will find a conversation where you said we switched from auth0 to clerk or something like that, even though none of those exact words matched it. It understands that login system and auth are related concepts. And that's the foundation of this entire thing, and more importantly at a high level how a vector database works. But there's a problem with vector search when it's put out there on its own, because if you dump 6 months of conversations into one big pile and then go and search it, you're going to get the wrong answer a lot of the time. If you ask questions about your authentication setup and it pulls up a conversation about your billing system because both conversations mention had the word security at some point, the search isn't really as smart as it's supposed to be and you end up with a mess. So what MemPalace does over here is it adds labels to every piece of content before it gets dumped in this database. These 3 labels over here, 1, 2, and 3. And those labels let the search engine ignore everything that isn't relevant before it actually starts looking. That's the entire trick here. It has something to filter it down before it addresses your search query. So our first label here is called the wing, and the wing is just a tag that says who this conversation was about. So let's say you're a freelancer and you have 3 clients, Sarah, Tom, and a project called Nightfall. Every conversation you have about Sarah's work gets tagged in the wing Sarah over here. The exact same thing happens for Tom. And then you have a wing for the project called Nightfall. Now, when you search for what did we decide about the homepage and you filter by wing Sarah, the database only looks through Sarah's conversations. Tom's stuff and Nightfall stuff don't even enter the picture. That alone over there is going to get you a drastic improvement over searching all of these things all at once. The goal here being to improve our accuracy of what we get sent back to us. So the wing deals with the who. So for label 2, that is called a room, and this is what topic we are searching for over here. So inside Sarah's wing, we're now looking inside this box, there is a room. There is a room called website, there is a room called email, and there is a room called payments. So if we had to now ask AI the question of what color scheme did I go with, what it's going to do is the first thing it's going to do is look inside Sarah's wing. Then it's going to look for a room where it might have mentioned that. In this case, color scheme might exist in website, so that's probably going to be the most likely room to search for this thing. And you only search through, say, 20 conversations instead of searching through all of this data over here. So again, we are increasing the accuracy because we are limiting the place that the answer to this could live in. But then there's one more layer to this, and it's called a haul, and this is what type of memory we are looking for. So you have things like facts, which are just your decisions. You have events, which are milestones, discoveries that were made, preferences, which might just be your personal habits, and then any advice, which is recommendations. So the goal would be to search for the who. Again, we're looking in Sarah's wing. Then we have a room, and this is the topic that we're looking for. So we could have gone with the website over here, what color scheme. And then the haul is what kind of memory is this? So show me every decision about Sarah's website. In this case, we're looking for a fact because we're looking for that color scheme. So you can see how these layers work together to improve the accuracy of our memory. But then they have done a little bit more. So inside each of these rooms, there is also a closet and a drawer. So a closet is just the compressed shorthand. So what they've done is they've used something called AAAK. And what this done is it takes large amount of text, say a large paragraph or whatever, and it compresses it down into a much more token efficient amount of text that this thing can pull out when it needs it. It's specifically written for AI. It's not written in machine language or something like that, but it's just a lot more efficient for the AI. Then they also have a concept of a drawer, and this is just the original words that are stashed alongside this forever. So the goal would be is that it searches through all of these things, and then when it opens up the closet, it reads the shorthand and it says, okay, this could be it. But if it needs more context, it always has every single word that was ever said in this conversation in case it needs it. And this is also really important because there are a lot of times where you might have a conversation, and if we're using a smart memory system like Mem0 or something like that, the AI is choosing for us what it thinks is important is. But as a part of that, we can get some context cut off that we might never be able to see again because it doesn't save that. So by having this structure here, we're getting the efficiency gains, but if we ever need it, we have all of the text as well. Then the final piece of this puzzle is tunneling, which is automatic cross-referencing. So if both Sarah's wing and Tom's wing reference this, you would have cross-references that you could use to pull out an answer if there was a solution that lived in both of these memories for respective systems. So it's pretty sophisticated in how it works, but it's also very simple. And this is all built locally on your computer, so you don't need a cloud subscription or anything like that. You can use local models, open source models, whatever you want to do. This is absolutely free, which is great. It is currently in version 1, so it was just released 2 days ago. I imagine it's going to get a lot better over time, especially as the community gets involved. But for now, let's jump in, get this thing installed, and see if it can actually pull out any of my memories accurately. Okay, so we're going to just run through this quick start quickly. More importantly, I'm going to get Claude to do this because I love burning more tokens during a usage crisis. So after we've installed this, I'll then go into the AAAK architecture and things like that, and we'll read through what this thing's actually doing under the hood. So I'm just going to copy the GitHub repo link, and I'm going to get Claude to pull it down into my environment and then install it for me. Copy this GitHub repo link into our environment and install MemPalace for me. And there we go. You can see that I've hit my limit just from running this single command. Not really, but it's actually getting pretty ridiculous. Anyway, I've got extra usage enabled, so we're not going to have a problem for this specific video. You could obviously do this all manually. I'm just doing this because I can't be bothered to type anything. And while this thing is installing, we can just come back over here. And I want to talk a little bit about this. So mining your data, this is what we're essentially going to be doing first when we set this thing up. It goes through all of your old projects, pulls out any conversations that you had, because in case you didn't know, Claude stashes all of your transcripts as JSON-L files. So we have everything that we've ever spoken about to Claude on our local drive. And this thing is going to go ahead and mine all of that. So I would say if you are installing this, just be careful whatever you're mining. If you do go into conversations where you were talking in Slack or you had any PII and things like that, do you really want it going into a memory system that could then be put into other systems later on? Just think about that sort of thing when you are going to mine your data. But for this, I don't really care because most of my environment is currently a dev environment. So it should pull out some pretty interesting things. Okay, and while that thing's installing, we're going to jump over to these slides just so that I can show you what this thing is doing, how it works under the hood without reading a GitHub manual. So the first thing that we did over here is we did pip install MemPalace. Obviously, AI did it for us in this case. Step 2 is to use the guided onboarding. So this thing will walk you through step by step of what projects actually matter to you. In this case, I just got Claude to do all of that and pull out our exact conversation. So I gave it the context of the GitHub repo that it was working in, as you saw, and then it just went off to the races and it's now doing all of that stuff for me. But if you wanted to, you could choose specific conversations or things that you want to mine to form your memory, but then you can create a specific wing for that and call it whatever you want to call it. And then finally, if you didn't do this inside Claude Code, you would obviously need to connect it with Claude Code, and that's where you can use MCP, although I would recommend using CLI over MCP because there's no need for MCP when it's just going to add token bloat and things like that. And then finally, all you need to do is ask Claude about a conversation that you once had and see if it pulls out the correct memories. We're going to do that in just a little bit. Then next up, we need to talk about the memory stack. So level 1 is always loaded, and this is the identity. So who is the AI? What project is this? It's 100 tokens that get loaded up front into every single session. The second thing is the essential story. So top moments from the palace, the team decisions, the preferences, things like that. That's between 500 to 800 tokens. And this is also always loaded. Next up, loaded on demand, is the room recall. So recent sessions, the current topic, it fires when a topic comes up in a conversation. It's room level precision. Then finally, we have layer 3, and this is the most expensive one. It is a deep search, and this is using semantic search across all closets and drawers. It only fires on explicit queries, and it is the heaviest option, obviously. But they claim it's super efficient because of this AAAK compression. It's a custom compression dialect that AI models read natively, and it's not machine learning based, it's rule-based string compression. You can see on the left-hand side over here, we have English, which is just a plain sentence over here. But then in this AAAK shorthand for the AI model, you can see why there's so much token saving over here, because this is significantly shorter in terms of the amount of text that we're using here. But it's important to understand what this thing is actually doing under the hood so that you can see if this is right for you and whatever your business use case is. So first up is using ChromaDB, which just stores all of your drawers live in a ChromaDB collection called MemPalace drawers. And then it uses specific embeddings for semantic search, and these all run locally. Then the second part of this is SQLite. AI loves to recommend SQLite because it's super simple. And in this case, they're using it specifically for a knowledge graph. So this thing tracks who, what, and when things stop being true, which is obviously really useful. The third part here is just config files. It's using PyYAML and JSON in order to configure this to whatever it is that you want. I'm not going to bother to go and tinker these things. I just want to explore if this thing can accurately pull things out from the moment that I set it up. Then there's something called temporal entity triples, and that's essentially saying that facts have validity windows. So when something stops being true, you need to no longer mention it as a part of this conversation. Historical queries will still find it, but the new stuff doesn't. And that's really important because your memories change over time. You might be working in one place at one point, but that might no longer be true, in which case if the system was pulling out information related to that, it wouldn't be entirely accurate. Then they've included contradiction detection, so it catches mistakes before they actually reach you. And that ties in with the knowledge graph that we spoke about. So ages, dates, and tenures, they're all calculated dynamically when you're speaking to this thing. It makes sure that it's pulling out relevant information to you. Then this one is really interesting because I think there are a lot of use cases of building specialist agents. So they have their own wings and their own diaries and things like that. So for instance, if you had a code reviewer agent, it would remember every single bug that it came across, design patterns and things like that, and it would remember that and then be able to use it next time that it works. It can recall these. And the more I talk about this, the more I realize that, Obsidian can do a lot of this stuff already. I don't always recommend Obsidian for businesses. Again, it depends on the use case. That's generally what I say on this channel, but this could have its use cases, and obviously this is actually using semantic searching here, unlike Obsidian where our Claude agent cannot use the semantic search functionality inside Obsidian itself. That is for the human layer, it's not for Claude. That's something that a lot of channels don't tell you. Whereas here, Claude would be able to interact with this directly and actually have that semantic search functionality, which is way more useful to you or your autonomous workflows. Then finally on this, within Claude, it obviously has hook integration. So the first thing is using a stop hook. That's pretty common for memory systems out there. In this case, every 15 messages, it triggers a structured save of everything that was spoken about in the conversation and stores it in the MemPalace. Then it's also got a pre-compact hook. So before Claude compacts your chat, it will store all of that relevant information in the memory bank so that you have it for later. And that's obviously really handy because sometimes it might compact something that it actually needed. It's very rare, but it can happen. But with this, you would actually have all of that information stored, or if you needed a wider part of that context, it could then go and pull that out at a later time, which is really handy. But enough talking, let's see what this thing did in my Claude environment. So MemPalace is mining your project in the background. Here's what's done so far. We cloned the repo, we installed MemPalace, we initialized the palace, detected 20 rooms from your folder structure, which is just this over here. This is my AI operating system where I keep everything locally. Again, I have a pretty crazy memory system already. I hardly ever use it. I do speak about that in my other videos. More importantly, around how to build your own AI operating system. So whether or not this will actually add value, we will find out. But it went through all of this stuff and it auto-classified one person, which I'm guessing hopefully it found as me, 10 projects as entities. Added MCP server, which we don't really need. And mining is now running. This processes your files into the Palace rooms, closets, and drawers. Once mining finishes, you'll be able to do mem search and the status to see the Palace stats. So I'm just going to ask this thing, is this thing mining my JSON-L conversations that we've had historically? And is it done mining yet? Obviously, if you were running this, you might want to do it through a terminal because then you would get that interactive session. It's really easy. You just click on this button over here and you would then run that pip install command and then run it straight out of their quick start guide. And you could begin mining yourself and set all of this up with your own customized names and things like that. Super trivial to do. That's why I didn't go through it because it's literally 3 steps in that document that I showed you on the screen. But you can see in this case, it did not mine the JSON-L conversations. It only mined the files inside my working folder, which is my AI operating system, like I just mentioned. So now what I want to do is I want to include these. So I'm just going to get Claude to go and run this because again, I'm not going to do it. Yes, I want to mine those historical conversations. And there we go. It found all of our historical conversations that we've had in JSON-L format, 186 conversations across 6 projects, 355 megs in total. Let me kick off the mine. Cool, and this thing is mining in the background. We can see here, it chose the mode of convos with extract general, auto-classifying into decisions, preferences, milestones, problems, and emotional context. And there we go. I just can't get enough of burning my tokens unnecessarily. So MemPalace mining modes. There are 2 modes. With an extraction strategy, the first one is projects, and that's what we ran the first time where it just grabbed everything out of here. The second one is the big one that we're running now, which is all the conversations that I previously had in JSON-L. The great thing about this though is the switch for extract general, where it pretty much does everything for us. It auto-classifies every exchange into the 5 types that we just spoke about, which are facts, the decisions that we made, events, which are the sessions, the milestones, any debugging breakthroughs that we had in these conversations. The discoveries were the new insights or the aha moments. So there's definitely going to be a lot of things in there for the contrarian take that I take on a lot of the hype videos that are out there. So we can test if it pulled those things out. Then we have preferences. So my habits, opinions, and likes. That'll be interesting to see what it thinks about me. And finally, advice, recommendations you gave or received. Without extract general, Convos mode uses default extract exchange strategy, which just preserves the raw exchanges without classifying them. And there we go, mining is complete. It took about 32 minutes or so to do all of my old conversations. So depending on how much data you have, it might take a pretty long time. And it's a pretty interesting map. So first up, we've got my haul for emotions, 13,635 draws for context, reasoning, and the why behind any decisions that we made. I really like to get down to the why of things. In the decision haul, we have 5,744 choices you locked in across sessions. So on and so forth. Combined with the earlier project mine of 10,000 draws, your palace now has 33,000 draws. That's a pretty big memory palace. Okay, so let's test out the memory system. We once troubleshooted a plug-in packaging issue. What was that and when did we talk about it? So there we go. It's gone and searching my MemPalace. If you want to know how to set that up automatically, it's really simple. Just add a line to your Claude.md. You can see down here that I've just added something specifically related to using MemPalace. Where the hell is this thing? Over here. So MemPalace long-term memory, a local memory palace at .mempalace. Stores all of the draws and index project files. Use it to recall what we've discussed, decided, troubleshooted, or built in past sessions. And that way, it will mostly try and stick to this. It's obviously not programmatic, so this thing can choose to ignore it or sometimes just ignore it because it's doing other things. But most of the time, it does remember. So based on MemPalace, here's what I found. The plugin packaging issue was about validating and fixing Claude Code plugin. Yes, it actually was for the AIOS plugin that I was building for one of my videos. So that's pretty awesome. It pulled it out exactly. Missing prompt file, front matter incompatibility, plugin for those were the exact things that were wrong with that. I can't extract dates from MemPalace source IDs, but based on context, this was likely during late March 2026. It sure was. But overall, it pulled out the exact memories that we had. So let's try another one. Based on my MemPalace, what do you know about me? So the reason that I'm doing this is because obviously I have context in here. Like I said, I store most of my context, simple things like my business, my voice, things like that, locally because it's just far easier than going into external systems when you can stash it in markdown files that AI can use to then go out into your skills, which obviously live inside this little folder over here. So there's really no reason for this complex memory system for most businesses out there, and that's probably how I'll end up wrapping whether or not this is the ultimate memory system. But what I want to do is see what this thing remembers about me. Mansel Sheffield, founder CEO of Atomic Ops, originally from South Africa, moved to UK in 2011, relocated to New York in 2025 for your wife's dream. Yes, that's all accurate. Professional journey, produced trance music in the UK, record sign, played gigs, that's all true. 2014, 2015, talked my way into IT, sure did. 2016 to 2020, moved into consulting, specialized in cybersecurity and cloud. Government, Fortune 500. 20 to 2024, built a second multi-six-figure consulting business alongside Splunk delivery, enterprise clients, blah, blah, blah. Rebranded to Atomic Ops, so 12 years as a consultant, 2 solo consultancies built. Yeah, this thing nailed it. And it would never have gotten this context locally. So this is all based on things that I've discussed with it if I'm trying to build an offer or talk about specific videos for YouTube or my school community. All of this information would have been discussed at one point and it has successfully pulled it all out. It even tells me what I'm building, the AI operating system, which is exactly what I'm working on now, a personal operations hub that runs your entire business. We have tons of those videos on this channel if you do want to check them out. Interestingly, it did mislabel this the AI Operator Accelerator. It's not called that at all, but I do have a school community about this. YouTube channel, content strategy, Contrarium idea videos, system demos, yep, that's all right. Deep dives, follow Hormozy influenced funnel, yep. You've built a GTMOS, I sure have. Your stack and approach, Claude Code, Superbase, Obsidian, sometimes. That was for a video now, so I guess it is assuming because we spoke about this that I'm now using it. Apollo and Hayreach, Perplexity, all of this stuff is entirely accurate. So the first memory was really specific, and I think it's done a pretty good job of pulling that out because it was some random conversation that I had where I had lots of plugin faults, but that was the one that we spoke about in depth. And then all of this profile around who I am, except for this little part about my school community, it pretty much remembered most of that exactly as it is, which is pretty cool because this isn't something that I've ever asked it to commit to memory. It's more just in conversation where these things were spoken about, obviously. So it's pretty intelligent in how it extracts all of that stuff. Whether or not this is the ultimate memory system, time will tell that. Obviously, it's only been out for 2 days. I'm sure that when the community gets involved with Milla and Ben, that they're going to make this even better than it already is. But something else that we need to take into context here is that I just set this thing up straight out of the box. More importantly, I got AI to do it for me. So what would be valuable perhaps is a follow-up video where I go in and make sure AAAK and all of that stuff is working as it should be. Maybe set up different wings because right now we have all of our data inside one giant memory palace. It might be more efficient to split it by project or something like that. Different angles that we can take on this to see if we can get even more out of the memory palace. But again, whether or not that's actually worth it for you as a business, for me, I definitely wouldn't be using something like this in the long term. I absolutely don't need it for what I do. you need to ask yourself, do you want a visual layer as well for you so that you can see the graphs and how all of your thoughts interconnect and stuff like that? Then you can probably just use Obsidian because that visual layer is built for that. But if you just want something that is accurate in pulling back your memories that actually works with AI, this is a pretty good approach right now. Of course, there are tons of other approaches that you can take. Just remember that you don't have that semantic search enablement with Claude specifically. That's more for you inside Obsidian. But I think from a version 1 perspective, this thing is pretty accurate. I'm sure some bugs will pop up over time. Nothing is going to be perfect out the box, and you probably will have to configure something, even like this little nuance over here. It's never going to be perfect. It's certainly not something I'd recommend to clients at this point. Obviously, it's still being developed. So my advice for you would be to play around with this in the dev environment, see if it works for you, but more importantly, if you're looking to implement something like this for your business or understand how context fits into your AI operating system, check out my other videos because those will walk you through the decision mapping into how to choose the correct system for the way that you want to work. So I hope this video was helpful in breaking down how to set this thing up. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, check out the videos on the screen right now. They're definitely going to help you on your journey. Thanks for watching.